Wait, before you throw away that old jar of pennies sitting in your garage, you need to watch this entire video because what I am about to show you today could literally change your financial life forever. We are talking about 5 specific Lincoln Wheat Pennies that coin dealers, serious collectors, and auction houses are desperately hunting for right now in 2026. And some of these coins have sold for amounts that will make your jaw hit the floor. One single penny, 1 cent face value, walking out of auction rooms for over $50,000. So if you have ever touched a wheat penny in your life, you cannot afford to miss what I am revealing today. Stay locked in, because we are starting with number 5 right now. The 1955 Lincoln Wheat Penny with D-Mint mark all right, so let us kick things off with a coin that absolutely does not get the respect it deserves in the coin collecting world. And that right there is a huge opportunity for you. The 1955 D Lincoln Wheat Penny. Now, at first glance, you might look at this coin and think, okay, it is just another old penny. Big deal. But let me tell you something. The moment you understand what makes this particular date and mint mark combination so incredibly special, you are going to start tearing through every single coin collection you have ever owned looking for it. So let us start with the basics. This coin was struck at the Denver Mint in 1955, and the Denver Mint produced approximately 563 million of these pennies that year. Now you might hear that number and think, well, that sounds like a lot of coins. Surely these must be common. And yes, in circulated worn condition, these are not going to retire you to a beach in Malibu. But here is where it gets absolutely wild, and this is what the mainstream coin community completely overlooks when they talk about this date. The survival rate of high-grade examples from this era is devastatingly low. Most of these coins spent decades circulating through cash registers, piggy banks, vending machines, and sofa cushions. The copper alloy used in these coins was incredibly susceptible to contact marks, environmental damage, and wear. So when you start looking at what genuinely pristine, high-grade examples of this coin trade for, the numbers become absolutely staggering compared to what most people expect from a 1-cent piece. Now let us talk real numbers, because that is why you are here. A heavily circulated 1955 D wheat penny in good to fine condition, you are probably looking at anywhere from 50 cents to maybe a few dollars at a coin show. In very fine condition, maybe $2 to $5. Extra fine, you start seeing $10 to $20. But this is where things go from interesting to absolutely insane. Once you cross into the uncirculated territory, specifically what graders call mint state grades, everything changes completely. A 1955 D Lincoln Wheat Penny graded MS63 by either PCGs or NGC, the 2 most respected grading services in the hobby, is currently fetching anywhere between $40 and $80. Now move up just a couple of notches to MS65, which is a gem uncirculated example, and you are suddenly in the $300 to $600 range. But hold on, because we have not even gotten to the really exciting part yet. When you start talking about MS67 examples, which represent essentially the finest known specimens of this coin, the auction records tell a completely different story than most people realize. High-end MS67 red examples, and that red designation means the coin has retained its original brilliant copper luster without toning or oxidation, have sold at major auction houses including Heritage Auctions and Stack's Bowers for anywhere between $2,000 and $8,000. And there are documented sales records showing exceptional examples crossing the $10,000 threshold when multiple serious bidders are competing for that one perfect coin. But wait, we need to talk about something that takes this coin into a completely different stratosphere of value. And that is the error and variety world. Because the 1955 D has some absolutely fascinating double die and repunched mint mark varieties that can multiply the value of your coin dramatically overnight. Repunched mint mark varieties on the 1955 D, where you can see evidence of the D mint mark being punched into the die more than once at slightly different angles, are documented varieties that serious variety collectors specifically search for. A strong repunched mint mark on a 1955 D in mid to high circulated grades can command anywhere from $50 to several $100s depending on the strength and clarity of the repunching. And then there is the die variety world. The 1955D has multiple documented double die obverse varieties, some subtle and some quite dramatic, where the date, Lincoln's portrait features, or the lettering shows clear evidence of doubling that occurred during the die manufacturing process. A strong double die obverse on a 1955D wheat penny in problem-free circulated condition can realistically fetch anywhere from $500 to several $1,000s from the right variety specialist buyer. The key things you need to look for when examining your 1955D are the sharpness of the D mint mark located just below the date on the obverse, the clarity of the wheat stalks on the reverse, and most importantly, you want to look under magnification at the date and the letters of liberty. And in God we trust for any signs of doubling or unusual thickness in the letters. You also want to examine the overall strike quality because Denver Mint coins from this era can sometimes show weak strikes that affect value, while a sharply struck example commands a significant premium. The face value of this coin is 1 cent. The potential value sitting in your coin jar could be anywhere from a few dollars all the way up to $10,000 or more for the right example. That gap between 1 cent and $10,000 is exactly why Lincoln Wheat Pennies are the most exciting and accessible treasure hunt in all of American numismatics. Next up, coin number 4. The 1945 Lincoln Wheat Penny with S Mint mark OK. So we are moving up our countdown now, and we are landing on a coin that carries with it an absolutely incredible piece of American history woven right into its very existence. The 1945 S Lincoln Wheat Penny. I need you to really absorb the historical weight of this coin before we even get into the values, because understanding the context makes this coin so much more than just a collectible. It makes it a genuine piece of living history that you can hold in the palm of your hand. The year 1945. World War II was still raging at the start of that year. The Allied forces were pushing through Europe, the Pacific theater was at its most intense, and America's entire industrial infrastructure had been fundamentally reorganized around the war effort. The San Francisco Mint, which struck this coin and applied that little S Mint mark that we care so much about, was operating under conditions completely unlike any peacetime minting operation. Everything, and I mean everything, was prioritized around supporting the war. Now here is something that coin collectors who are not history buffs often miss. In 1943, the United States Mint had actually switched to zinc-coated steel cents because copper was so desperately needed for ammunition shell casings and military equipment. Then, in 1944, they transitioned to using salvaged brass from spent shell casings. By 1945, they were back to a more standard bronze composition, but the entire operation still had this wartime urgency and sometimes inconsistency baked into it. And that inconsistency, from a numismatic perspective, creates tremendous opportunities for variety hunters and error coin seekers. The San Francisco Mint struck approximately 952 million Lincoln Wheat Pennies in 1945, bearing that S Mint mark. Nearly a billion coins. So again, you might think, common coin, not worth my time. And if you think that way, you are leaving serious money on the table. Here is what the numbers actually look like when you start examining what these coins bring at auction. In heavily circulated condition, good through fine, a 1945 S Wheat Penny is worth maybe $1 or $2. Not going to make anyone rich in that state. Move up to very fine, and you are looking at $3 to $8. Extra fine gets you into the $15 to $30 range. These are all still modest numbers, but we are just warming up. The real story begins in the uncirculated grades. An MS-63 example of the 1945 S Lincoln Wheat Penny currently trades for approximately $60 to $120, depending on the surface quality and eye appeal. Hit MS-65 gem uncirculated, and you are suddenly looking at $300 to $700 for a beautiful red gem example. And when you get into the MS-66 and MS-67 territory, which represents the absolute finest condition survivors from nearly 80 years ago, things get genuinely wild. MS-66 red examples have been selling at heritage auctions and other major venues for $1,000 to $3,000. MS-67 red examples, and these are extraordinarily rare because finding a nearly 80-year-old copper coin in essentially perfect condition is like finding a needle in a haystack that has been sitting in the rain since 1945. These have sold for $5,000, $10,000, and in exceptional cases, over $15,000. One particularly spectacular example, graded MS-67 plus red by PCGs, sold for over $18,000, which represents an 18 million% return over face value for someone lucky enough to have preserved that coin perfectly. But let us talk about the variety and error side of the 1945S, because this is where things get completely ridiculous in terms of value potential. The 1945S has one of the most famous and valuable repunched mint mark varieties in the entire Lincoln Wheat Penny series. The 1945 S over S variety, where the mint mark was punched once and then repunched at a different angle or position, creating a clearly visible double S appearance under magnification, is a genuinely scarce and highly sought-after variety that serious collectors specifically target. A 1945 S over S repunched mint mark in clearly visible circulated condition can command anywhere from $100 to $500. In mint state grades, a 1945 S over S can realistically fetch anywhere from $1,000 to $5,000 or more, depending on the grade and the strength of the repunching. These are the kinds of varieties that coin dealers are paying serious money for at every major show, and most people who own them have no idea what they have because they just see a dirty old penny. The double die varieties on the 1945S are another massive area of potential hidden value. Several documented double die obverse and reverse varieties exist for this date and mint mark, and the stronger examples in circulated condition have sold for hundreds to thousands of dollars. You need a loupe or a magnifying glass with at least 5 to 10 times magnification to properly examine the date and lettering for doubling, but the 5 minutes you spend doing that examination could literally change your day when you discover a strong double die hiding in your collection. What you are physically looking for on this coin is that S mint mark sitting just below and to the right of the date 1945 on the obverse. Examine that S very carefully for any signs of a secondary S impression at a different angle. Look at the date digits themselves for any doubling or thickening. Check the lettering in Liberty running along the left side of Lincoln's portrait. And on the reverse, look at the wheat stalks for die cracks or other die errors that can add significant collector premiums. 1 cent face value on a coin that could be worth anywhere from $1 to $18,000 depending on what exactly you are holding. The 1945S is an absolute sleeping giant in many collections. Next up, coin number 3, the 1942 Lincoln Wheat Penny without mint mark now. We are really getting into the heart of this countdown, and coin number 3 is one that I am genuinely passionate about because it sits right at this incredibly fascinating intersection of American history and numismatic rarity that very few people fully appreciate. The 1942 Lincoln Wheat Penny struck at the Philadelphia Mint with no mint mark. And I need to give this coin its proper context before we dive into the values, because the story behind 1942 pennies is absolutely remarkable. December 1941. Pearl Harbor happens. The United States is suddenly and completely thrust into World War II, and within weeks and months of that event, the entire American economy and industrial base begins this dramatic wartime transformation. The 1942 Philadelphia Lincoln Wheat Penny was struck during this pivotal transition year, and that context matters enormously for understanding why certain varieties and conditions of this coin command the prices they do. The Philadelphia Mint, which produced coins without a mint mark during this era, struck approximately 657 million Lincoln Wheat Pennies in 1942 using the standard copper-bronze composition. Now, 1942 is particularly fascinating because it was the last full year of standard copper composition cents before the wartime switch to steel in 1943. So 1942 Philadelphia cents represent the end of an era in American coinage, and collectors and historians treat them accordingly. Now let us get into what these coins are actually worth, and I want to spend some real time here because the value curve on the 1942 Philadelphia wheat penny is genuinely exciting once you understand how grade and variety interact. In well-worn, heavily circulated condition, good through fine, you are looking at anywhere from 50 cents to $2. These are common in that state, and nobody is getting excited about them. Very fine condition, call it $3 to $8. Extra fine starts getting a little more interesting at $15 to $40. Still not life-changing money, but you can see the trajectory beginning. Uncirculated mint state examples are where the real story unfolds. An MS-63 brown or red-brown example of the 1942 Philadelphia wheat penny is currently valued at approximately $40 to $100. Not bad for a 1-cent piece. Move up to MS-65 and you are looking at $200 to $500 for a gem red example. MS-66 red, which is a genuinely spectacular coin, trades for $800 to $2,000 at auction. And MS-67 red examples, the absolute finest known survivors of this common date from over 80 years ago, have sold for $3,000, $6,000, and in at least one documented case, well over $10,000. But here is where the 1942 Philadelphia wheat penny transforms from merely interesting to absolutely extraordinary, and this is something that gets coin dealers and serious collectors genuinely excited every single time it comes up. The double die varieties. The 1942 Philadelphia Mint Lincoln Wheat Penny has several documented double die obverse varieties that range from subtle to absolutely spectacular. And the premium that the right buyers will pay for strong examples of these varieties is genuinely staggering. The most significant double die obverse varieties for the 1942 Philadelphia cent show clear evidence of doubling on the date, particularly in the 4 and 2 digits, as well as doubling visible in the Liberty inscription and sometimes in the "In God We Trust" motto. Under magnification of 10 to 30 times, a strong double die on a 1942 Philadelphia will show what appears to be ghost letters or numbers slightly offset from the primary impression, giving the lettering a thick, doubled appearance that is unmistakable once you know what to look for. A strong double die obverse on a 1942 Philadelphia wheat penny in circulated condition, even worn down to good or very good, can realistically command anywhere from $500 to $2,000 from the right variety specialist. In mint state grades, strong double die obverse varieties on the 1942 Philadelphia have crossed the auction block for $5,000, $8,000, and even $12,000 at major sales. These are the kinds of numbers that make grown men and women drop to their knees at coin shows when they finally find one hiding in an old collection. There is also the lamination error world for 1942 Philadelphia cents that deserves serious discussion. Lamination errors occur when the copper planche used to strike the coin has a flaw, a separation or peeling in the metal layers that creates a visually dramatic and sometimes quite large area of missing or peeled metal on the coin's surface. A significant lamination error on a 1942 Philadelphia wheat penny can add anywhere from $50 to several $100 in value, depending on the size and drama of the error. Die cracks and die cuts are another category of errors on 1942 Philadelphia cents that command real premiums. A die cud, which is a raised blob of metal at the rim of the coin resulting from a broken section of die, can add $200 to $500 or more to the value of a 1942 Philadelphia cent, depending on its size and position. These are not rare errors in the sense that they are frequently found, but they are absolutely desirable and valuable to the right collector. The historical significance of this coin, sitting at the very end of the pre-war era standard copper cent coinage, combined with the variety possibilities and the dramatic grade-sensitive value curve, makes the 1942 Philadelphia Lincoln Wheat Penny one of the most underappreciated coins in the entire American copper series. Face value, 1 cent. Actual value in the right grade or variety, potentially $10,000 or more. Next up, coin number 2. The 1935 Lincoln Wheat Penny without mint mark "we" are down to the final 2 coins on this countdown, and the values are about to get absolutely wild. So I need you to stay right here with me, because coin number 2 is a date and a coin that has produced some of the most shocking auction results in recent Lincoln Wheat Penny history. And it is a coin that most people walk right past at coin shows without giving it a second glance. The 1935 Lincoln Wheat Penny struck at the Philadelphia Mint without a mint mark. And before you say anything, yes, I know, 1935, relatively modern, probably super common, not worth getting excited about. That is exactly what I thought before I started digging into the actual auction records and variety research on this date. What I found changed my perspective completely. The 1935 Lincoln Wheat Penny was struck during the Great Depression. Think about that for a moment. The year 1935, the American economy was in absolute shambles. Unemployment was still devastating communities across the country. People were struggling to survive on the most basic level. A penny in 1935 was not a trivial thing. It was actual purchasing power that people desperately needed. Coins from this era circulated heavily and continuously because they represented real value in daily commerce. That heavy circulation is precisely why finding a truly gem uncirculated 1935 Philadelphia cent is so extraordinarily difficult today. The Philadelphia Mint struck approximately 245 million Lincoln Wheat Pennies in 1935. That sounds like an enormous number, and in terms of coins, struck it absolutely is. But here is the reality of surviving population reports from PCGs and NGC. When you look at how many of those 245 million coins have survived in gem-quality uncirculated condition after nearly 90 years, the numbers become dramatically smaller. The combination of heavy Depression-era circulation, improper storage over nearly a century, environmental damage from humidity and temperature fluctuations, and simple attrition has reduced the surviving high-grade population to a tiny fraction of what was originally struck. Let me walk you through the value progression on this coin so you can really feel where the excitement lives. Heavily circulated examples in good through fine condition, call it $1 to $3. Very fine, $5 to $10. Extra fine, $20 to $50. These are still modest numbers. But now watch what happens as we climb the grade ladder into uncirculated territory. MS-63 examples of the 1935 Philadelphia Lincoln Wheat Penny are currently trading for approximately $100 to $200. That is already a significant jump. MS-65 Gem Red, and the color designation matters enormously here because a red gem retains that brilliant original copper color, while a brown example has oxidized to a darker tone. MS-65 Red examples are currently valued at approximately $400 to $900. MS-66 Red, we are now talking about $1,200 to $3,000. That is $1,200 to $3,000 for one single penny. And when we get to MS-67 Red, which represents the finest known examples of a coin that has survived nearly 90 years in virtually perfect condition, the auction results become genuinely jaw-dropping. MS-67 Red examples of the 1935 Philadelphia Lincoln Wheat Penny have sold at Heritage Auctions and Stack's Bowers for amounts ranging from $8,000 to over $20,000. $20,000 for a coin that left the Philadelphia Mint with a face value of 1 cent. That is a 2 million% increase over face value, and that number is not an exaggeration. It is documented auction history. Now let us talk about why the variety world around the 1935 Philadelphia cent makes these numbers even more exciting. The 1935 Lincoln Wheat Penny has several absolutely fascinating double-die varieties that variety specialists and cherry pickers guide enthusiasts specifically hunt for at every coin show and flea market in the country. The Cherry Picker's Guide, for those who do not know, is the definitive reference book for valuable variety coins in the United States series. And the 1935 Philadelphia has multiple listings in that guide for good reason. The double-die obverse varieties on the 1935 Philadelphia show doubling primarily in the date, particularly in the 9 and 3, and in the Liberty and in God we trust inscriptions. Strong examples of these double-die obverse varieties in any circulated condition that clearly shows the doubling can bring anywhere from $300 to several $1,000s from dedicated variety collectors. In mint state grades, a strong double-die obverse on a 1935 Philadelphia has the potential to bring $5,000 to $15,000 or more at the right auction with the right bidders in the room. The die variety known as a double-die reverse, where the doubling appears on the wheat stalk design elements and the 1 cent denomination on the coin's reverse side, adds another dimension of collectability and value to 1935 Philadelphia cents. Several RPM varieties, which stands for repunched mint mark, do not apply here since this is a Philadelphia coin without a mint mark, but the double die and die crack varieties more than compensate for that. Off-center strikes on 1935 Philadelphia cents are another category of dramatic and valuable errors. An off-center strike, where the design is noticeably shifted away from the center of the planche, creating a crescent of blank, unstruck metal on one side of the coin, can add hundreds to thousands of dollars in value depending on the percentage of off-center and whether the date is still visible. A 50% off-center 1935 Philadelphia cent with a clear date would easily fetch $1,000 to $3,000 from the right error coin specialist. Broad-struck examples, where the coin was struck outside of the retaining collar that normally keeps coins perfectly round, creating an oversized and sometimes irregular-shaped coin, represent another fascinating error type for this date that commands real premiums from error coin collectors. A significant broad strike on a 1935 Philadelphia can add $200 to $800 depending on the drama of the error. What I want you to understand about the 1935 Philadelphia Lincoln Wheat Penny is that it sits in this incredible sweet spot of American numismatics, where it is common enough in circulated grades that most collectors and dealers dismiss it without a second look, but rare enough in genuinely high grades and significant varieties that the collectors who know what to look for are finding life-changing coins hiding in plain sight every single day. Face value 1 cent. The right example worth $20,000 or more. Next up, coin number 1. The 1909 Lincoln Wheat Penny without mint mark, and here we are. The king. The coin that started it all. The first coin on our list, and the most historically significant, most numismatically important, and potentially most valuable entry in this entire countdown. The 1909 Lincoln Wheat Penny struck at the Philadelphia Mint without a mint mark. And I am going to be completely honest with you right now. This is not just a coin. This is a piece of American history so profound, so deeply woven into the fabric of this nation's cultural and numismatic heritage, that talking about it purely in terms of dollars almost feels inadequate. Almost. But we are absolutely going to talk about the dollars because they are extraordinary. August 2nd, 1909. That is the date when the Lincoln Wheat Penny made its first public appearance, released to a curious and somewhat divided American public. The introduction of the Lincoln cent was itself a controversial moment in American coinage history. For the first time in the history of United States coinage, a real historical person, not a symbolic figure or allegorical representation, appeared on a circulating coin. Previous American coins had featured liberty, an idealized feminine representation of freedom, not an actual identifiable human being. Putting Abraham Lincoln on the cent broke that tradition completely, and the debate about whether it was appropriate was fierce. President Theodore Roosevelt commissioned the redesign as part of his broader effort to beautify American coinage. The sculptor Victor David Brenner was selected to create the design, and his portrait of Lincoln, based on a photograph by Matthew Brady, became one of the most recognized and beloved images in American numismatic history. The wheat penny design would go on to circulate for 50 years, from 1909 through 1958, making it one of the longest-running coin designs in American history. Now let us talk about the specific Philadelphia Mint 1909 cent without a mint mark, and what makes it so spectacularly valuable in the right grades and varieties. The Philadelphia Mint struck approximately 72 million Lincoln cents in 1909, which sounds like a substantial number. But here is what you absolutely have to understand. These coins entered circulation in 1909 and were actively used in everyday commerce for decades. The hoarding and preservation mentality that saves coins in pristine condition simply did not exist for most Americans during that era. These coins were spent, worn, lost, melted, and destroyed over the course of the 20th century at a rate that has dramatically reduced the surviving high-grade population. Let us walk through the values methodically, because the progression here is one of the most dramatic in all of American numismatics. A heavily circulated 1909 Philadelphia wheat penny in good condition, just identifiable with the date and major design elements visible, is worth approximately $10 to $20. Fine condition gets you $30 to $60. Very fine, $75 to $150. Extra fine, $200 to $400. These are already respectable numbers for a 1-cent piece, and we have not even reached uncirculated territory yet. MS-63 brown examples of the 1909 Philadelphia Lincoln Wheat Penny are currently valued at approximately $300 to $600. MS-63 red brown, $400 to $800. MS-63 red, up to $1,200. The color designation matters enormously on early Lincoln cents because original red mint luster is extraordinarily difficult to preserve over more than a century of potential exposure to environmental elements. MS-65 gem red examples are currently valued at approximately $2,000 to $4,000. MS-66 red, $6,000 to $12,000. And when you reach MS-67 red, which represents a coin that has somehow survived over 115 years in essentially perfect condition with full original mint red luster and no significant contact marks or distracting blemishes, the auction results are nothing short of spectacular. MS-67 red examples of the 1909 Philadelphia Lincoln Wheat Penny have sold at major auctions for $15,000, $25,000, and in exceptional cases, well over $40,000. $40,000 for one single penny with a face value of 1 cent. But now I need to tell you about the single most important and potentially most valuable aspect of the 1909 Philadelphia Lincoln Wheat Penny, and this is something that sends experienced coin collectors into a state of barely controlled excitement when they find one. The VDB variety. Victor David Brenner, the sculptor who designed the Lincoln cent, had his initials VDB placed on the reverse of the coin at the base of the wheat stalks when the coin was first released in 1909. There was an immediate public outcry that these initials were too prominent and too self-promotional for a coin designer, and the mint quickly removed them. But not before approximately 27 million Philadelphia cents with the VDB initials had already been struck and released into circulation. The 1909 VDB Philadelphia Lincoln cent is one of the most famous and beloved coins in all of American numismatics. Every serious coin collector knows about it. Every beginner is taught about it. And the values reflect that legendary status completely. A 1909 VDB in good condition is worth approximately $20 to $30. Very fine gets you into the $40 to $75 range. Extra fine, $100 to $200. These are coins where even circulated examples command real money because of their historical significance and collector demand. But in uncirculated grades, the 1909 VDB Philadelphia Lincoln cent becomes a genuinely serious financial asset. MS-63 red examples are valued at approximately $500 to $1,000. MS-65 gem red, $3,000 to $7,000. MS-66 red, $8,000 to $18,000. And the MS-67 red tier, those extraordinary examples that have beaten the odds of over a century of potential damage and survived in pristine condition, MS-67 red 1909 VDB examples have sold for $30,000, $50,000. And the finest known examples have achieved prices well over $75,000 at major auction houses. $75,000 for a coin that circulated in 1909 with a face value of 1 cent and that people spent on penny candy without a second thought. The double die varieties on both regular 1909 Philadelphia cents and 1909 VDB examples add another incredible layer of potential value. Several documented double die obverse varieties exist for 1909 Philadelphia Lincoln cents, showing particularly dramatic doubling in the date digits and the Liberty inscription. Strong examples of these varieties in any clearly visible condition can command anywhere from $500 to tens of thousands of dollars, depending on the grade and the strength of the doubling. Die gouges, polish lines, and other mint-made characteristics on 1909 Lincoln cents are studied and cataloged by specialists to a remarkable degree, and certain die marriages, which is the specific combination of obverse and reverse dies used to strike a coin, command significant premiums from advanced collectors. The study of die varieties on 1909 Lincoln cents is a field in itself, with dedicated researchers who have spent decades cataloging and documenting every known variety. What you should physically look for when examining a 1909 Philadelphia Lincoln Wheat Penny is first the presence or absence of the VDB initials on the reverse at the base of the wheat stalks. If you see those three small letters, you have potentially got one of the most famous American coins in your hands. Then examine the overall surface quality, look for any doubling in the date and inscriptions under magnification, check for die cracks or other die errors, and assess the color, which should ideally be a brilliant red or at least a partial red designation to maximize value. The 1909 Philadelphia Lincoln Wheat Penny is the foundation stone upon which the entire Lincoln cent series rests. It is history-made metal, it is art pressed into copper, and in the finest grades and most significant varieties, it is a financial instrument worth more than most people earn in a year. Face value, 1 cent. The right example, worth over $75,000. Final thought. And that is our complete countdown of 5 Lincoln Wheat Pennies that could absolutely be hiding life-changing money in your old coin collections right now. From the 1955D all the way back to the legendary 1909, these coins prove beyond any doubt that the most extraordinary treasures in American numismatics are often the ones hiding in plain sight in old jars, shoeboxes, and inherited collections sitting in attics and basements across this country. Before you spend another wheat penny or toss another old coin collection aside, get a loupe, get a magnifying glass, and spend some time really looking at what you have. The difference between a 1 cent face value and a $10,000 coin can come down to a tiny double die that takes 30 seconds to spot once you know what to look for. If this video opened your eyes to the incredible hidden value in Lincoln Wheat Pennies, do me one favor and hit that subscribe button right now, because we are dropping new coin hunting content every single week. And the next video could literally help you find the next treasure hiding in your own collection. Hit subscribe, ring that notification bell so you never miss a video, and I will see you in the next one. Happy hunting!